Today's presentation is going to be a little different. It is Prescriptions for Spiritual Wellness, and it is part of a series that will be ongoing through April, May, and June on the second chapter of the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. I will begin with about an hour presentation. We'll take a short break, and then there will be a wonderful yoga asana presentation by Sherry Thompson, who will be illustrating one of the key themes of what I've been talking about today. So let us begin. What is the layout of the Yoga Sutras? The first chapter is called the Samadhipada, and it's an intellectual assessment of what samadhi is and how it can be reached. The mind is explored. So what are the obstacles of the mind that prevent concentration and absorption? And then how to purify the mind so that can lead us to higher states of consciousness. What is the infrastructure of a purified mind? The use of spiritual tools that develop discrimination and non-attachment. The practice of meditation. So aspirants discover stages of concentration and its spiritual uses. For advanced sadhakas, the first chapter is enough to understand the subtleties of the higher states of consciousness. The second chapter of the Yoga Sutras, the Sadhanapada, is where the aspirants learn the procedures we need to undertake in order to attain samadhi. They're practically oriented. These aspirants have reached the stage in life where they ask, what's the meaning of life? How can I develop the strength to remain undisturbed by the ups and downs of this world? What is the goal of life? How do I make a start? What are the problems I'll face? And how do I overcome them? So these are common questions that come to us in the beginning. So these aspirants are beginners, not advanced in sadhana, but are sincere seekers. Kriya Yoga will help develop their power of introspection to pursue an in-depth study of the mind. This is a chapter of structured, self-imposed disciplines that elevate our awareness to the point where we fully understand how to proceed on the path of self-realization. Patanjali starts by giving us the pillar of spiritual life, what is called Kriya Yoga. Sutra 2.1. Tapaha swadhyayeshwara pranidhanani kriya yogaha. The translation is tapa, means to create, generate heat. It's means arduous discipline, how we manage ourself. Swadhyaya is study of the scriptures. Ishvara pranidhana is cultivation of devotion to a chosen ideal, a fixed ideal, not one that we choose today and then discard tomorrow, but one that we hold steady. And kriya is action. So kriya yoga means the yoga of action, at the preliminary step of yoga. Now there are three words here which pertain to self-purification, physically, mentally, and emotionally. Tapas, to generate heat within ourself. It's accomplished, and literally, one feels heat, especially in the heart region, when one is under extreme discipline and is cultivating their spiritual life with intensity. This is accomplished by controlling the outflow of energy of the mind. How do we do this? By redirecting it inwardly towards sadhana, which progresses us on the path of spiritual realization. So the mind is always outgoing. Our senses take us out. But sadhana, we begin to take the mind inward. So this heat has the capacity to burn away the dirt from an alloy and leave it in its purest form. So by performing tapasya, self-control and spiritual practices, we literally burn away our ignorance by removing the impurities of the mind that obstruct the light of the Atman. And this takes time. This doesn't happen overnight, doesn't even happen in a month, or maybe not even in a year. But gradually, we may not see the change, but those around us see a change. So this mind is like a mirror, and lust and greed are the dross of the mind that dirty and stain it. So the mirror of the mind provides only a diminished and distorted reflection of our true original nature. So it's not our thoughts that identify us. There's something else within that is our true identity, and we have to uncover that treasure. Every spiritual discipline undertaken, whether daily meditation, worship, karma yoga, study of the scriptures, helps us to progress. There's no deed that goes unnoticed in the mind of the Absolute. We progress toward awareness of the divine. A beautiful analogy is given in the Katha Upanishad, chapter 1, section 3, verses 3 through 6, which helps us to spiritually reorient our sense of self to our higher nature, so that we can begin the mechanics then of gaining control over our lower self. Know the self is the rider, and the body the chariot. The intellect is the charioteer, and the mind the reins. The senses, say the wise, are the horses. The roads they travel are the mazes of desire. The wise call the self the enjoyer when he is united with the body, senses, and the mind. So this is a strong symbology here. And it really helps us to reorient our sense of self into the paradigm of a spiritual aspirant. So these 5 strong horses tied to the chariot are the senses, outgoing, rushing forward, and the reins are the mind. The buddhi is the higher mind, which guides the lower mind that holds the reins. The purusha sits in the chariot witnessing this interaction. And when we, as aspirants, begin to control the horses of the senses through the reins of our higher mind and its rationality, we ultimately approach the Purusha, our true original nature. And this is over time. We get more as our sea legs, we get more of a sense of the direction we're going. We're usually under the guidance of a teacher who helps us. And in this way, we progress slowly. Swadhyaya is purification of the thought process through 2 methods. First, vada, debates, argumentation, and they're used only to train the intellect. And then the second is siddhanta, decisive confirmation of the truth through discrimination, as in Drigdrsha Viveka, or the process of Neti Neti Atman, not this, not that, this, refuting and negating all that is impermanent and transitory for that which is real. So once we have, through reason, arrived at the second level of understanding, Vivekananda cautions us, do not argue. Arguments only disturb the mind. So we don't want to become vain in our knowledge through argumentation. Instead, we try to realize what we've studied. It's a personal self-study to own internally what we've arrived at through logic and reasoning. So we listen to this argumentation, to this discussion, but we ourselves have to be the participant. We have to own the knowledge. And in this way, we develop the capacity to reason, and that in turn develops subtle insight of an awakened mind, which inspires us to convert all our activity into worship of the divine. Now, Ishvara Pranidhana is a final purification that takes place by surrendering ourselves to God. Through study and spiritual practice, our life begins to become a constant remembrance of the divine, which inspires a seamless worship of the divine in all of our activities. And we see this in the great exemplars, the wonderful swamis in the order that I've had the privilege to meet. Even the most mundane actions have a fragrance of spirituality about them, because the Swami is absorbed, partially absorbed in the divine. I say Swamis because we belong to the Ramakrishna order. Our convent, unlike Sarada Math, is established under the Ramakrishna order. The Sarada Math in India is the first convent in history that is self-governing by women, and that also was established by the Ramakrishna order. So all three, tapas, swadhyaya, and Ishwari Pranidhana, go together. Now, Patanjali taught that we must convert all of our activities of life in an endless flow of interaction with the divine. That's the goal, which is the goal of Sri Krishna's Karma Yoga in the Gita. Our teachers tell us that Kriya Yoga, self-development of structured, self-imposed spiritual qualities in order to convert an egocentric life into a divine-centric life. See, we begin to become our own teacher. As the mind becomes purified, we see the obstacles. And when the mind has discrimination, we don't self-flagellate ourselves with the failings, we correct them. It's a very cool, calculated way that we run our life. So where do these disciplines lead us? Sutra 2. Samadhi, bhavanartha, klesha, tanu, karanartascha. Kriya Yoga leads to concentration and attenuates obstacles, pain-bearing obstructions. In other words, we develop the capacity to hold the mind on a particular object for prolonged periods of time. And this shows up in our workplace as well. We develop a higher degree of concentration. So we develop this power of concentration with intensity and duration. So it's the capacity of everyone here to have that and develop that, to the point wherein the mind becomes saturated by the object of concentration. The mind becomes colored by it, as it were. We've seen this in great artists. Monet, for example, we've seen it in great conductors, uh, where the mind becomes so saturated, it just goes to a higher realm. The music itself, the art itself. So, what does this mean? One example of this is what takes place in concentration and real, genuine meditation. When the mind is trying to concentrate, it flits away. Beginners understand this. Even people who've been practicing meditation for a long time understand the process and are not upset by it. It's the nature of the mind. And it is then brought back, and again it flits away, and it has to be brought back until it is steadied. Now, my teacher said if it is steadied for 12 unbroken seconds, then it receives what is called the joy of concentration, dharana. Say 12 unbroken seconds. And that's no small feat. That takes time to cultivate that. And it's a felt joy. It's something different than the joy, an ordinary joy that we feel. It's something that comes completely within. But when it is steadied in meditation, Swami Prabhupada said 12 times 12 seconds, 2 minutes and 24 seconds, somewhere in that neighborhood, an aspirant feels a more intense joy and a qualitative difference in that state. The will is still active, but you don't feel you are trying to meditate. The mind suddenly is just flowing towards the object of meditation, and with it comes a sense of joy and peace. The mind becomes stuck without any effort on its part. Becomes totally saturated with that object of meditation, tatstha, remaining in it, being stable, on which it stays or rests. So your mind is being held on a particular point for a particular point of time. Tat anjanata, taking on the coloring of that, coalescing with, appearing to take the shape of the object. For example, just as a crystal ball takes on the color of behind it, and that colorless crystal reflects a certain color, so also the mind in meditation forms itself to the form on which it is meditating, while holding the mind on that object, say our chosen ideal, whatever ideas or quality that ideal represents, we are coloring our mind with those ideas and qualities. So when we go to practice meditation every day, we're actually bathing the mind in the presence of our chosen ideal. So this meditation, this prolonged duration of time, gives our psyche the time to transform itself into the form of the vritti, the thought wave. And in a manner of speaking, our chitta, the lake of the mind, is colored by the color of the object of our meditation. We be and become that. It's a state, a spiritual state. A second example of how meditation on the divine colors our mind and thereby our being is Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Swami Turiyananda, who was a disciple of Ramakrishna and who came to this country, is the epitome of Vedanta principles put into the practice in everyday life. Vivekananda said to Swami Turiyananda, America has seen what a kshatriya is according to the Indian concept. I will send you as they can see what is Brahma Vidya. They will see that in you. He was such a realized soul. with a great, tremendous power. He is the one who established the Shanti Ashram in San Francisco with a band of just a few Western students. And their life there is something to behold. Um, uh, Guru Das Maharaj, his first Western monastic disciple, he wrote about it and with the Swamis in America and in India. A third example of the transformative effects of concentration and meditation can be found in Swami Turiyananda's advice. He said, if you want to study the Gita, take a shloka, memorize it, and live it for a week. Why? What happens? It actually begins to work on us emotionally, mentally, physically. It begins to modify our behaviors. And we become the commentator. We begin to see how it works on us and the truth of that particular shloka because we own it. We own the truth. We are experiencing it. We don't have to be told. And also in his example, do you know how I studied the Gita? I used to meditate on each shloka, on each word of the shloka, until the intended meaning was revealed to me. Now, we don't have necessarily that capacity of a great soul, such as Swami Turiyananda, or one who has practiced meditation for many years, but we can begin where we are, and we can begin to own our religion, to make it our own. So this is the ancient tradition, to imbibe the sloka by piercing through it with a concentrated mind and thereby realizing its deeper meaning. So what are the obstructions to yoga? In other words, this caliber and level of concentration and meditation create a lack of control within us and thereby causes pain. So it takes a dedicated effort, day in and day out, to reduce and erode the whole of past samskaras, past tendencies detrimental to our spiritual life. We can change the future, but first we have to learn how to manage the present. Sutra 3. Avidyasmita raga dvesha binivesha kleshaha. These obstacles, the cause of suffering, are ignorance, egoism, attachment, aversion, and the desire to cling to life. The Sanskrit definitions are, first of all, avidya, means ignorance, absence of true knowledge. The misconceptions we hold are that which is not so. We think it to be so. That's ignorance. I mistake the mirage for the water. We see the permanence in that which is impermanent, this body, even this mind. Anitya, everything is changing. Asmita, from the fertile soil of avidya grows asmita, ego. What is this ego? I misidentify myself with that which I am not. I am not this body. I am not this mind. We say my body, but we are not the body. The body is separate from my true self. Nor are we the mind. I may think I'm miserable or happy when in fact I have misidentified myself with the vrittis of the mind, the thought waves of the mind. That which we can see, and in Vivekananda's famous pratyahara, meditation, calming the lake of the mind, witnessing the thoughts as they arise, and many of you have done that with me here, whether our body or our thoughts and emotions is not who we are if we can see it. If we can see our thoughts and that means to feel our thoughts as well. Then it is an object. Our thoughts, our emotions, they're objects. The seer and the seen are separate. We may experience misery and happiness, but I, the witness of happiness and misery, am not miserable or happy. I am the witness, separate from the objects of the mind, which I can see and experience. But in our daily life, we forget that. And thus we repeatedly involve ourselves with that which we are not. And our daily lives flow based on that basic misconception. That is what is called ignorance. To better help us to understand this ego that causes this knot of ignorance, an illustration is given of a projector. Let's pick that up. This projector has one light with a roll of film rolling in front of it, and the picture falls on a faraway white screen. Without light, we would not see any object. Light is the source of our subsequent knowledge. The role of the film is the interaction which takes place in the sense organs, our sense organs. What we take in through the eyes, the brain then transforms the image into the process of knowing and experiencing. And third, this eye jumps into the process and says, I am knowing. When the light itself, chit, pure consciousness, is illuminating the experience. Light is chit, the witness consciousness. Without that, the mind cannot think. This body cannot live. Now, chitta, there's a difference between chit and chitta. Chitta is pure consciousness. Chitta is that subtle matter of mind and the brain process on which the light of pure consciousness first falls. So chitta is the lake of the mind that we can watch, that we can feel, that we interact with. The second example is when we fill a pitcher with water. The sun reflects on that water, the chitta, the lake of the mind. And so our chitta seems to be shining because of the borrowed light of the sun, the chit. We think water, our chitta, is shining when in fact it is the light of the sun, chit, that shines on the water. I think I am shining and I am illuminating when it is the sun, pure consciousness, which is actually illuminating our understanding and allowing us to act. The ego, our egos, mistakenly think I am the doer, I am the knower, when it is the Atman that is the knower, the doer. This claim that I am I is the initial act that produces the chain reaction of further superimposition and entanglement. Individuality for ourselves implies individuality everywhere. It automatically superimposes a world of multiplicity upon the one undivided reality. Swami Prabhupada, in his introduction to the crest jewel of discrimination, the Viveka Chudamani, explains, first, the ego idea is superimposed upon the inner self, the higher self, the existence reality. Then the ego idea, reaching outward, as it were, identifies itself with the body and the body's mental and physical attributes and actions. We say as a matter of course, I am fat, I am tired, I am walking. We go further. We claim purely external objects and conditions for our own. We announce that I am a Republican, or that this house is mine. As superimpositions multiply, extraordinary statements become possible and normal. So we live with that abnormal behavior all the time. We somehow have normalized it. Our job then is to maintain the stance of the witness and to try to see the divine within ourselves and the world, and this is possible. Raga means attachment. Dvesha means aversion. A bitter memory leaves a negative impression, a negative mental impression. And whenever I remember that experience, it brings up a negative reaction in the mind. So we've all had that experience. Abhinivesha, holding on to the familiar. Avidya, mistaking the unreal for the real, mistaking the rope in the road at night for a snake, the mirage for water. In other words, by clinging to our life that is devoid of the power of discrimination or even of our awareness of the divine, as well as the yogic method of conserving energy that allows interaction with the divine within and without ourselves. Klesha means affliction. So our ignorance is the cause of our pain. Klesha and the four others, Raga, Vesha, Abhinivesha, and Klesha, are the effects of ignorance. Sutra 4. Ignorance creates all the other obstacles, whether dormant, attenuated, overpowered, or fully developed. Avidya, ignorance, is like a fertile soil for asmita. Raga, attachment. Vesha, aversion. Abhinivesha, mistaking the unreal for the real. Swami Vivekananda tells us, everything we do, think, or feel leaves a mark on the mind, what we call a samskara, a mental impression. Now, dormant samskaras are what Swami Vivekananda describes in his Raja Yoga commentary. He wrote, "You often hear the expression innocent as a baby, yet the baby may be the state of a demon or of a god, which will come out by degrees. We have to wait for the adult life to see that manifested. Attenuated samskaras," he says, in the yogi, the samskaras left by past actions are attenuated, that is, exist in a very fine state. And he can control them and not allow them to become manifest. So everything we have thought or done in our life is stored there in this cauldron of the mind, this lake of the mind. Overpowered means that sometimes one set of impressions is held down for a while by those that are stronger, but they come out when when that repressing cause is removed. The last state is the expanded, when the samskaras, having helpful surroundings, attain to a greater activity, either as good or evil. So the intelligent person watches carefully what goes into the mind, because the purified mind is the receptacle that takes us to our true original nature. So what is the dynamic operating nature of samskaras? We read Sri Krishna's explanation in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verses 62 to 63. And in Santa Barbara, we had a nun who was a composer and a musician, and she put many of the verses of the Gita to music. And so I have the music in my mind, but I won't bore you with that. Simply stated, thinking about sense objects will attach you to sense objects, grow attached, and you become addicted. Thwart your addiction, it turns to anger. Be angry and you confuse your mind. Confuse your mind, you forget the lesson of experience. Forget experience, you lose discrimination, and you miss life's only purpose. So it's just like a ball jumping down a stairs. Therefore, we must remain watchful of the mind, so we don't thoughtlessly form harmful samskaras or allow past samskaras to take hold of us and spiral out of control. Swami Sardananda gave this advice to one of his disciples who asked him, Maharaj, I have a terrible time with anger. Sometimes it just takes hold of me and I'm helpless. Do you have that problem? Swami Sardananda shared with Swami, this was shared to the disciple who shared this with Swami Sridharananda, and the Swami shared this with me. Swami Sardananda said, in Bengal, there's a time of year, midsummer, when a storm comes called the Northwester. It's almost a killer. This storm generates after the sundown like a tornado. There were experienced souls who kept an eye on the northwestern corner of the sky. If they saw a small speck of the dark cloud, they knew the storm would come. A small speck of a cloud identified, they began to prepare to face that calamity. So Sardananda told the young disciple, the difference between you and me is that I can sense a dark cloud in the northwestern corner of the sky. I can sense a samskara in the process of growing and bursting upon me. So I prepare myself as a spectator, unmoved by that. I sit and I watch how slowly that samskara is taking its shape, a dimension which is trying to uproot me. I see, I watch, I'm not involved. So what happens? It bounces off without my reacting. That samskara, not acted upon, uproots itself. To attenuate past samskaras, we must be like a scientist and diligently investigate the mind. We can all do that. Swami Sridharananda advised, and Swami Sridharananda is a wonderful holy man. He's the head of so many centers that he started in Australia, the disciple of Swami Virajananda, the sixth president of the Ramakrishna order. He advised, keep a sharp watch on your mind all the time. The astuteness of your observation depends on how astutely you are trying to remember your Ishta mantra. If you are initiated, that's very, very helpful. If you're not, you follow a different path to remember what your teacher has given you. Keep that the focus of your mind. Swami Swahananda used this method of observation as a young monk when he was once told he had a problem with anger. And most of you know that Swami Swahananda, disciple of one of the direct disciples, Swami Vijnanananda, is the founder of this center. He was once told that he had a problem with anger. What did he do? In a monastic class with us, convent members, he told us that he used to keep a journal. Every time he became angry, he would jot down the incident in his journal. Not only that, but the Swami would note the duration of his anger and what eventually brought it to an end. And by such astute observation and diligent self-reflection, Swami Swahananda eventually brought his anger under control. Sutra 5. To take the non-eternal as eternal, the impure as pure, the painful as pleasant, and the non-Atman as the Atman, this is ignorance. So ignorance is forgetfulness of what we truly are. We're divinities on earth. Yes. Swami Vivekananda at one time said, "Ye, the almighty cause of this universe, reflecting yourselves in little mud puddles." So this false notion that I am the body is the great delusion. This body-mind lasts only a brief lifetime. It is non-eternal. We take the painful. This is a picture of Swami Sardananda I described to you. We take the painful as the pleasant. Sri Ramakrishna said, the camel loves to eat thorny bushes. The more it eats the thorns, the more the blood gushes from its mouth. Still, it must eat thorny plants and will never give them up. The man of the worldly nature suffers so much sorrow and affliction, but he forgets it all in a few days and begins his old life over again. And so we take the impure as the pure. As Sri Ramakrishna said, we dress, anoint, and dally with a body which contains only blood, phlegm, filth, and excreta. That's a very dynamic example of what it is, how we're deluded. Sutra 6. To identify consciousness with that which merely reflects consciousness is egoism. So we are bound when we identify ourselves with whatever comes before the mind and the senses. Now you might say, well, what can we do? We're out, we're interacting with people in the world. We're not just sitting on our meditation cushion. No, but the practice of trying to superimpose the divine on those beings who we meet, keeping that sense of our true identity with the divine within ourselves, that is part of the practice. So the mind is only an instrument of knowing. Consciousness itself is the true knower. David Kali, who is one commentator on the Yoga Sutras, explains instead the ego claims the ability to see and to know as its own. Oh, I know. In reality, it is the light of pure consciousness which illumines the mind. One who is illumined experiences the self-aware self, whereas the ignorant identify with the mind's activities. Whatever appears before the senses and flashes in the mind. And from that, we continue to fashion our own individuality, our own personal history, and we treat it as part of who we are. Vivekananda tells us we should identify ourselves with the higher self. That cannot change. If it is unchangeable, how can it be one moment happy and one moment unhappy? What can change it? It is beyond all law. What can affect it? Nothing in the universe can produce an effect upon it. Yet through ignorance, we identify ourselves with the mind stuff, this chitta, this lake of the mind, and think that we feel pleasure and pain. Sutra 7. Sukhanushayi ragaha. Attachment is that which dwells upon pleasure. From my forgetfulness of who I truly am, I mistakenly believe who I think I am, this body and mind. From that ego-driven self springs a sense of what attracts me and what I must pursue for my own happiness. The mind flows uncontrollably toward that which attracts us. Sutra 8. Dukhanushayi dveshaha. Aversion is that which dwells upon pain. In other words, we're tied to that which we hate or fear. As long as we resist or run away from something, it will continue to pursue us. There's a beautiful example of Swami Vivekananda when he was a young monk in Varanasi, and he was followed by a pack of monkeys. He began to run, and they chased him. And if you've ever been to India, which most of you have, sure, you know how big monkeys can be and how aggressive. And so he was running and running until finally he heard a bystander call out, "Face the brute." Vivekananda stopped, turned, faced down the monkeys. And what did they do? They stopped in their tracks. They were so startled. And then they slunk away. And for Vivekananda, that was a great lesson of his life. Face the brute. Sutra 9. The desire to cling to life is inherent in both the ignorant and the learned. This is because the mind retains impressions of the death experience from many previous incarnations. Now, in Vedanta, you don't have to believe in previous lives, future lives. You don't have to believe in any of that. What's important is the present life. It's a theory, and it's a very good theory. And it's based on some experience. But again, it is not what you absolutely have to believe in to be a Vedantan here. We're creatures of habit, and we fear change, the unfamiliar. So we stick to that which is familiar and comfortable. We all do that. We're victims of our own self-created habits. Abhinivesha, ignorance, is caused by clinging to enjoyments and fear of their curtailment with death. Why? In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, 4th chapter, 3rd section, 9th verse, there are two states for man, the state in this world and the state in the next. There is also a third state, the state intermediate between these two, which can be likened to a dream. While in the intermediate state, a man experiences both the other states, that in this world and that in the next, and the manner thereof is as follows. When he dies, he lives only in the subtle body, on which are left the impressions of his past deeds, and of these impressions he is aware, illumined as they are by the light of the Atman. The pure light of the Atman affords him light. Thus it is that in the intermediate state he experiences the first state, or that of life in the world. Again, while in the intermediate state, he foresees both the evils and the blessings that will yet come to him, as they are determined by his conduct, good and bad, upon the earth, and by the character in which this conduct has resulted. Thus it is that in the intermediate state, he experiences the second state, or that of life in the world to come. The death experience is the self-assessment in the clear, relentless light of the Atman from which he or she is still alienated. For some who come face to face with this, and there are some interesting reports, and I myself heard a very interesting one from a former prisoner who was being operated on in prison, and she elevated above her body, and she looked down upon her body and thought, what a poor soul this person is. It absolutely transformed her life. When she came into our bookstore in Santa Barbara, she was such a sweet person. Unmistakable. That experience had a powerful impact on her life. So this self-assessment is the clear light of the Atman from which he or she is still alienated. For some who come face to face with this, they experience shame, dread, or remorse, never imagined in our ordinary life. The state of shame, dread, or remorse does not occur to those who are meritorious or liberated. In this case, she was blessed. This experience was a teacher for her. Verse 10. When these obstacles are reduced to a vestigial form, they can be destroyed by resolving them into their causal state. Now, these samskaras are resolved in samadhi. The knot of the heart, which is ignorance, is cut asunder. That is said when one has attained samadhi. They resolve through samadhi into its cause, ignorance, asmita or I consciousness. Then the impressions die along with it. So in a sense, when one has samadhi, one has attained samadhi, one is born again, a born again Vedantin. So life is an unending flow of experience, impressions of likes and dislikes. What are these kleshas? Avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. So we make sure there's no movement of the mind that goes without us watching it. Without watchfulness, we develop the understanding this vritti is dangerous to me, and then we are able to wipe it out of our mind. That wiping out comes from meditation. When we can identify, we begin to identify our vrittis and weed out those that are unacceptable. Sutra 11. Dhyana hiya tad vrittayaha. Translation. In their fully developed gross form, they can be overcome through meditation. Dhyana means meditation. Hiyas, to abandon. Vrittaya means thought wave. So it's easier to attend to Sutras 10 and 11 if they are put in a reverse order. To deal with the gross samskaras first, then the subtle. Start with the gross. So we cleanse the mind, and it's likened to washing a dirty cloth. My teacher, Swami Prabhupada, used to say, first the dirt must be loosened with soap, then washed away with clean water. Soap represents the practice of the preliminary steps towards yoga. Tapaha, swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana. Austerity, study, and the dedication are the fruits of one's work to God. Water represents the practice of meditation. So soap and water are both indispensable if the cloth of the mind is to be properly cleansed. The one cannot be used effectively without the other. Sutra 12, and we're coming to the end here. Klesha mula karmashayo drishta janma vedaniyaha. A man's latent samskaras have been created by his past thoughts and actions. These tendencies will bear fruits in this life and in lives to come. Swami Vivekananda said, whatever work we do, the mind is thrown into a wave, as it were. And after the work is finished, we think the wave is gone. No, it has only become fine, but it is still there. When we try to remember the work, it comes up again and becomes a wave. So it was there. If not, there would not have been memory. Thus, every action, every thought, good or bad, just goes down and becomes fine and is there stored up. So our past makes our future, our present, but what we do now makes our future. We are responsible for what we be and become. Vivekananda, both happy and unhappy thoughts are called pain-bearing obstructions because according to the yogis, they in the long run bring pain. All enjoyment will make us thirst for more. and that brings pain as its result. There is no limit to man's desires. He goes on desiring, and when he comes to a point where desire cannot be fulfilled, the result is pain. Now, this is extreme desire. I'm not talking about having an ice cream cone. I'm talking about extreme desire. Therefore, the yogis, Vivekananda tells us, regard the sum total of the impressions, good or evil, as pain-bearing obstructions. They obstruct the way to freedom of the soul. This is a science of the mind. What we are now is a result of our past action, gross and subtle action, physical and mental action, in thought, word, and deed. Karmashaya, samskaras, latent tendencies there within us. So whatever I do, a residue of that impression remains in the mind. The chitta. This chitta, the lake of the mind, is a receptacle of all of my activities in my life. So many years of thoughts and actions. Klesha means affliction. It comes into the picture because all thoughts and actions have been and are now attached to our small self, this little I, which doesn't allow us to merge with our true identity. So the root cause, mula, of my problem is this egocentric activity that leaves behind an indelible impression in the mind. So our future outcome is also egocentric. Until this storehouse of egocentric activity, karma, is exhausted in this life, it will wait its turn in the next life unless we roast away these karmas through spiritual practice. This roasting away is called tapasya, to generate heat. So tapaha plus swadhyaya plus Ishvara pranidhana is what sadhana is and what spiritual practice does. It creates an intense internal heat which burns our karmas. My teacher used to say, the further you go to the east, the farther the west is left behind. It's just very simple. The intensity with which we perform something virtuous, spiritual, it will show up in point of time, according to the amount of intensity and involvement I brought to bear on that act. So this is the law of karma. And if what we are today is a result of our past, then what we can control today remakes our future. We must then apply ourselves to remove our capacity to create further bad karmas. We must be aware of what I do, how I do it, and with what attitude I do it with. So this brings us to the importance of karma yoga. Each and every act leaves an impression behind. No one can stop the flow of life, but we can rechannel it as spiritual aspirants. Let every act, bodily, emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, be an offering to the divine. That is Ishvara Pranidhana. We are putting awareness of the divine in the chitta due to the unstoppable flow of life, which we are making divine-centric as karma yoga, worshiping of the divine. It's a very simple practice, spiritual jujitsu. Sutra 13. As long as a root cause exists, it will ripen into the conditions of birth, life, and experience. So this lack of knowledge of my true nature is perpetuated. The Purusha is the awareness of my amness. That first impression when we wake up in the morning, before we start identifying ourselves as I am. It's just a split second. One of our Swamis said, try to hold on to that I am. Swami Ritajananda said, instead of I am so-and-so, think I am spiritual being. Make that the first impression. So he who resides in the city of Brahman is the Purusha, infinite, eternal, the Aham, the witness, the spectator. And somehow I have lost my true identity. I identify instead with my experiences. The yoga system, in the yoga system, the I, the Aham, only lightens up the experience. In the Vedanta system, I am pure consciousness is Sat Swarup, Chit Swarup, Ananda Swarup, also addressed sometimes as Purusha. So our goal is to experience our true original nature. The rule of the game, whatever I do, feel, or think, each action is motivated. The body only works by the motivation of our emotion and reason. So all our actions leaves a deep abiding impression in the mind, in the chitta. All impressions are collected there. The more we repeat a particular action, the deeper the impression becomes. For example, we plow a field once. We put the plow in the same groove twice. We allow a shallow dip becomes deeper until finally it becomes a trench. That groove or trench is samskara. We can bring it forth by our will, or law of suggestions brings it to the fore. This is how samskara remains. Vivekananda says, the cause, dying down, becomes the effect. The effect, getting subtler, becomes the cause of the next effect. The seed sprouts into the tree, and bears fruit, it drops and becomes a seed. That sprouts into another tree. We become a slave of our habits. But if we perform spiritual habits, those samskaras takes us Godward. Though I am the witness, some I have forgotten my true identity. I identify myself instead with this interaction. I am doing, feeling, thinking. I am happy. I am sad. Thus, I have somehow dislodged myself from that pedestal. The root is avidya, the rest follows. Egoism, the sense of a separate I, attachment, aversion, clinging to life. So the teachers ask us to root out the cause, not recognizing my true original nature and becoming the victim of avidya. Though I don't experience it now, I have no reason to doubt that I am the Purusha. So how create positive samskaras to reach that goal? Try to be aware of the reality behind the appearance. Try to see God in everyone. Try to project your chosen ideal into others. By hook or by crook, use your spiritual imagination to try to spiritualize our environment. Try not to interact with the appearance as though it is real. So in this way, we must re-educate ourselves by creating new positive samskaras within us that will attenuate all erroneous past samskaras. And this takes place through sadhana, meditation, vichara, surrender to Ishvara Pranidhana, karma yoga. Lastly, Swami Sridharananda gave the example. A piece of rope has a capacity to tie me down, he said. So at one end, I ignite it. The rope will become burnt down. It looks like a rope, same shape and size, but when I pick it up, it's only ash. We ignite the rope through sadhana, tapas. That which generates heat is what attenuates the samskara. It reduces it to ash. It no longer has the capacity to bind us. In this connection, Once a disciple of Swami Brahmananda, a great holy man, was asked if he ever had lust. A simple question asked by a monastic. The Swami answered, yes, but if I reach for it, it turns to ash. So if we take a rice paddy, if we skin off the husk, it loses its capacity to germinate. So those samskaras lodged deep in the chitta, if treated in a particular manner, ignored, lose their capacity to bind. Awareness of our true nature is the answer to this problem, practicing the presence of God no matter what. Not knowing our true nature is replaced by knowledge of our true nature. In conclusion, it comes in increments as we progress, or it can come suddenly through the grace of a holy personality or the grace of a powerful spiritual experience.
In progress. Good morning. It's good to see everybody here again. I've met many of you, and I'm really happy to be back and to see everyone here for this part. So I entitled this part of today, Practice, Reflect, and Offer, which is Kriya Yoga, basically, that Brahmaprana talked about. So the idea of tapas, that we practice, whatever it is that we're choosing for our sadhana, it wouldn't necessarily be asana, but that's my chosen arena. And what I'm going to lead you in today. And then the second part of the Kriya Yoga Svadhyaya I'm referring to as reflect. It's not just reading the scriptures, it's reading the scriptures and reflecting on them as how they affect how you are experiencing your life, and using those scriptures to grow spiritually. And then offering, of course, we all do that. When we do any kind of sadhana practice, we offer the fruits to our chosen deity, to the divine. So today we're going to first start with a body scan. So part of practicing asana is learning to feel our body, to know our experience in our body, because we can't change anything unless we know that it's there, right? So do we know what our posture is? Do we know why we struggle sometimes with reaching for that thing on that high shelf, or why our back gives us pain when we're standing in line for any length of time? We know we're having the experience, but we may not know enough about that experience to be able to make a positive change. And while that may not seem related to your spiritual life, it's very difficult to sit for meditation or do a lot of these practices unless your body kind of becomes the background. So we kind of bring it to the foreground to take care of it, so that it will leave the mind alone when we need for it to. So we kind of pull it forward, we shine a light on it, we learn to discern all of the different compensations that we use that create problems sometimes, and then we make positive changes. So it's like a microcosm of the macrocosm of sadhana. So this has been my practice for 34 years, I think now, very long time. And I can tell you that it's saved my life in more ways than one. And it has brought me to a place of great joy at the age of 68. And I see myself doing this unless something happens, until I meet Ramakrishna. So, so let's start. The intention that I would like for you to have, which is your sankalpa. Sankalpa is the Sanskrit word for intention, is just to intend to be present and just notice the effects of the practice and that they have on your physical self as well as your emotional, mental self. So it's really that simple. So if you notice that your mind has wandered from what you're meaning to be focused on, just bring yourself back. Really important not to be judgmental of yourself or others, to just be where you are. We all start in different places. We're all of different ages, different conditions, and all of them are perfect for the practice of asana. Okay, so there's no prerequisites. People tell me all the time when I talk to them about yoga, well, I can't do that because I'm not flexible. Yeah, you can. In fact, all the more better reason to do it. So there's no one that can't do yoga if they choose to do it. So we're going to start with a body scan just to help us to kind of get in touch with our bodies. So if you'll close your eyes, sit comfortably. If you have any clothing or anything that is constricting your breathing, see if you can loosen that a little bit. Just tune in. And feel your feet on the ground. Just feel the sensation. If your feet aren't on the ground, try to just feel your feet. Feel the pressure that's between feet and the floor. What is that sensation? Feel the air making contact with your feet, the tops of the feet, the toes. Notice your right foot only. And now the left foot. And try not to move, but rather stay still so that the information coming back at you is very pure, not contaminated by the mind, but just pure sensation. We're not thinking about what we're feeling, we're just feeling. Pure experience, raw information. Now notice any difference between your right and your left foot. And then bring your awareness up into your lower legs, noticing the front of the lower leg, the shin, and the back of the lower leg, the calves. Notice any differences between the two sides. And then draw your awareness up into your knees. Noticing the shape, the internal sensation of shape of the knees. Notice any discomfort in your knees. Try to treat any discomfort or pain as neutrally as you can. Just be with it as pure sensation without the story or anything else that we sometimes add to our experience. And then bring your awareness up into your upper legs, your thighs, your hamstrings on the back. And feel the connection of the back of the thighs to your chair. Feel the weight. Sensations of connection. You'll notice the sense of connection and sensation the feet to the ground, back of the legs and your bottom to whatever you're sitting on. Feel, notice that stability. Notice the sensations of stability. And bring your awareness up into your hips. Colors may pass through, shapes, textures, sensations. And then bring your awareness up into your lower back. Notice the shape of your lower back and any sensations there. And then come up into your mid back. Your upper back. If you're leaning against your chair, feel the pressure and the connection to your chair. Notice any temperature, coolness, warmth, softness, hardness. Now notice your whole spine, whole spine, whole back, back of the neck, and the tops of your shoulders. Really take a moment with the tops of your shoulders. What sensations do you notice there? Are you holding tension? And if so, what does tension feel like here? And then go down through both arms. Feel both arms all the way down into your hands. Feel the connection of your hands to your body. Maybe one hand connected to the other hand. Feel into your palms, one of the most sensitive areas of our bodies. Notice any sensation in your palms. And your fingers, sensitive, sensitive, sensitive area. We have more nerve endings in the hands and the fingers than any other part of the body. And then bring your awareness to the front of the trunk, the abdominal area and the chest area. Just notice what's there. And then I want you to notice any sensations of breath. Feel the breath. Notice how the breath creates its own sensations in the body that you feel both internally and externally. Notice if the breath is shallow or deep, long, short. Let the breath be natural. Feel how you're becoming more relaxed, more than likely. And then bring your awareness up into your face. Without opening your eyes, imagine you were looking in the mirror and notice the expression on your face. And feel that expression as a pattern of sensations. How is the expression being felt inside? Feel behind your eyes. Feel behind your forehead at the frontal brain. And dive deeper into the brain, all the way to the back of the brain, and feel the back of your brain. Notice when you go back to the back of your brain, the effect that has on your whole body. Feel the whole back of your body. Let yourself rest in the back of your body. Notice how that feels. What are the sensations? Now feel your whole body. Include your whole body in your awareness now. From your feet, legs, hips, back, front, arms, hands, head, whole body. Right side, left side, front, back, head, whole body. This container that you are taking this journey in, your vehicle for this particular life. How is it being you in this body? So now take a nice deep breath to the count of 4. So just inhale to the count of 4. When you get to 4, hold for just 2 seconds. And then exhale out slowly to the count of 8. Slow exhale. When you've completed that breath, do that 2 more times. Inhale to the count of 4. Hold for 2. And then exhale for 8. And when you've finished with that, you can open your eyes. And as you open your eyes and come back into the room, just notice how you feel now compared to when you first came in and sat down. Just notice what the change is, if there is a change. And I'm not suggesting it'll be good or bad. It is whatever it is, and it's your experience, and therefore it's valid. And this is the point we go forward from. So from here, we're going to move into movement, into some of the asanas themselves. And the asanas that I have are ones that we're going to cover through the whole series. And so we'll be doing different ones, but a lot of repetition too, because it's important to repeat things to have the deepest experience. And the simplest of poses I have found over the years are the most powerful. So don't for a moment think, and so this is really applicable if you're sitting at home on your couch. Don't forget that the simplest is the most powerful. So the simple act of sitting in what we call mountain pose, which is what I'm sitting in, where you're sitting up tall with your feet flat on the ground right underneath your knees, your shoulders over your hips, and your arm bones back a little bit so your chest is open. Just sitting here, which is really, this is a meditation pose, right? So asana practice was really developed in order to promote meditation. And the original poses were all meditation poses. This is a meditation pose. So mastering this pose, you master yoga. Okay. So good to practice holding for whatever length of time you can. It builds your core strength and teaches the mind to calm. Okay. So this is where we always come back to. After every pose, we come back here and we take a second. We reflect. How am I feeling now? What effect did the last pose have on me? Okay. So let's go ahead and do some simple arm movements to warm up the shoulders. So with the arms by your side, chest stays lifted. Inhale and just take your arms up as high as you can, keeping your elbows straight, and reach up through the little finger side of your hand. And as you reach up through the little finger, push down through your right foot. So you elongate through your spine, making the spine as long as possible. Don't hold your breath even though you're holding the pose. Keep the breath flowing all the time. Don't ever hold. You don't need to hold. Holding doesn't help. Exhale. Ah. So we'll do that a couple of more times. So inhale up. We will do it with the breath this time. Exhale down. Inhale. Reach through those little fingers. Press down with your feet. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. I'm going to add on now. So anything that we do that you can't, don't worry about it. Just do what you can. Inhale. This time as we exhale, we're going to fold forward. Stretch the back. Let go of your head. Just go as far as you can. Now inhale, bring your hands to your knees. Arch your back. Look up if you can. Keep your shoulders down. Exhale, bow. Now, when you inhale this time, pull your right knee up to your chest. Let your back round. And exhale, bow your head. Inhale, take the arms up, reaching up. Exhale and bow. Inhale, we'll lift the left knee up to the chest now. Now arch your back, look up. Exhale, round. Inhale, arms up. This time we'll come to namaste, hands right at the heart. Good. Inhale up. This is a repeat, alternating the sides. So going forward as you exhale. Inhale up to your knees. Arch your back. Exhale, fold. Inhale, left knee up this time. Arch, look up. Exhale, round. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, bow. Right knee lifts as you inhale. Arch. Exhale, round. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, namaste. Good. And then just lower your arms. Take a moment to just reflect. So I'm not important. What's important is what's happening inside of you. So just do what you need to do. If it's close your eyes, but just feel. Just notice the effect. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll do a twist where we turn to the right. And we're going to turn the head to the left. And then turn the head back to the right. And back to the left. Notice how your neck is feeling. Did you sleep funny last night? Are you standing on your head yesterday? Have you been tense with a lot of work? How is it affecting your neck? Turning the head. Now hold the head to the left and grab hold of the outer right leg. Take your right arm up, reach it up, side bend to the left. Now breathe. Feel your breath at your navel as you hold this for about 5 breaths. So nice long inhale, and as you inhale, try to lengthen. And as you exhale, relax. Relax your shoulders. Relax your jaw. tongue in your mouth, eyes. One more deep inhale, reaching as far as you comfortably can. As you exhale, bring yourself back and pause for a second in the middle. Take a breath. Let out whatever tension you stirred up, and then turn to your left. Your shoulders relax, keep your breath flowing, and turn your head back to the right, and then turn it to the left, and back to the right, and to the left. This time, leave your head to the right. Continue to breathe and feel what's happening in your body. And then take your left arm up by your ear, side bend. And 5 nice deep breaths. So inhale and lengthen. Exhale, relax your shoulders. Relax your eyes. Again. And then the next inhale, we're going to reach as far as we can and come all the way back, exhaling. And take a moment, breathe breath, reflect. So reflection here doesn't mean necessarily thinking, talking to yourself. It's simply giving time for what you experience to get all the way through to the very bottom of your brain. So separate your legs a little bit. We're going to do some hip circles. Hip circles are great for your low back, okay? So if you have any tendency to get a little tight in your back and you just really need some energy to come back and your back to be relieved, this is your pose. So your legs a little more than hip width, just circle around as far as you can and back up. So we're going to do this 5 times in one direction, 5 times in the other direction. And just notice the stretch in your low back. It also warms the hips. Last time in this direction, coming all the way back up and reversing and going to the other direction. This one this way. And then bring your legs back together. Did you like that one? Everybody loves that one. Okay, so the one that goes along with that, that is also super, super good for your back, and we've kind of already been doing it, is cat-cow. Anybody heard of cat-cow? Yeah. Okay, so cat-cow, I think is most effective when it's focused with your breath. So inhale and arch your back. Really exaggerate that arch if you can. And exhale around your back. Straighten your arms, really push your spine back towards the back of your chair. Tuck your chin. And then when you're ready for an inhale, just come forward. Pull your shoulders back and down. Exaggerate the length on the front of the body. And as you exhale, exaggerate the length on the back of the body. So this is one that you can do several times a day, especially if you sit at a desk or on the couch or sit, period. This one really helps to loosen up all of the muscles that are so close to the spine and create problems when they get too rigid and too weak to support our structure. Meditation can become quite difficult when the back is weak and can't support sitting up straight. Okay, One more like that. And exhale to finish. Always finish on the exhale. Come back to mountain pose. So now that you've done a few poses, your back is warmer, your hips are a little more open, your shoulders are a little more open. So now we can spend another breath or two just feeling where we are. Just notice how simple what we've done is, but it really makes a difference in how we feel. Okay. So we're going to transition. Actually, we're not. I don't have that much time because Brahmaprana took my time. No. I want to take a few moments because we always need to reflect fully. We've reflected physically. I'm now going to ask you to reflect more mentally, okay, on what you've done and what you've experienced. So the first question I want you to ask yourself, so if you like, close your eyes so you can just, again, be with yourself. And just ask yourself, how do I feel overall now? And how is it different than how I felt when I sat down? Try to use words beyond fine, good. Be a little more descriptive with yourself if you can. And then ask yourself, do I understand how I got here? How was I in this practice? Did I engage fully? And just based on this little bit of experience, how might I maximize the positive effects if I repeat this? Maybe holding the poses a little longer, doing more poses, different poses. How could I maximize this small amount of time into the best result for me? And then finally, and probably the most important question to ask yourself is, do I believe that making yoga a practice, making it a habit, would that improve the quality of my life? And then bring your hands together in front of your heart. Really lift your chest. So if you place the base of your thumbs right at your sternum and just pull up a little bit, lift your chest. Now relax your shoulders. Close the distance between your fingers and bow your head. Just let it drop, but don't let your heart drop. Just the head drops. Now thank yourself for taking the time to do this practice. And then offer any benefits to your chosen deity. Sometimes we also can offer the fruits of our practice to someone that we know is in need of support. Just share in the benefit of what you have received. Namaste. Okay, so as we go on through the weeks, we'll do more of the asana. I was just kind of setting the stage because this is the key to the whole second chapter. So it will be a theme in this part of the sessions every single time, okay, to help deepen the understanding. I'm sorry. Oh, you're so very welcome. My honor.